It's the male person's here.
Okay, John, if you're ready to begin. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So let's start. Open the meeting for the City of Albany Economic Development Committee on July 2nd. So we call the meeting to order, and I think we do our roll call at this point, and we do it, I think you're going to call the roll.
Yeah, and if everyone could unmute themselves and say that you're here, and then remute yourself for the rest of the meeting unless you're called on. Thanks. Committee Member Kane?
Here.
Committee Member Charles?
Here.
Committee Member Chasty is unable to attend this evening. Committee Member Goldman? Here. Vice Chair Sala?
Here.
Committee Member Tiedemann?
Here.
And Chair Montag?
Here. Thank you. So with that, we go to item 2, which is approval of minutes from the June 4th, 2020 meeting. Does anyone have any comments on it or make a motion to approve?
I may have overlooked it, but I think in the public comment, we also had comments from Vonnie Davidson, the owner of Ocean View Brew Works and a teacher, but I didn't see her name listed there, but I could have missed it.
We have Vonnie Davidson under 6.2, discussion of short-term business recovery strategies.
Okay.
Does that sound accurate to everyone?
I see Member Kane.
The minutes don't reflect what a jerk committee member Kane was when he was asking the questions to Claire and Jeff Bond regarding processes. So committee member Kane would like to publicly apologize for his attitude.
Thank you for that addition, but for the minutes, I think if everyone else, any other comments? We have a motion? Yes, Member Charles? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I'll make the motion to approve the June minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second? A second by Member Goldman. Maybe if verbally you have to say that, please.
Second.
Great. So do we have any further comments? Seeing none, then all those in favor? Again, roll call. Do we have to do a roll call?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Committee Member Kane?
Yes.
Committee Member Charles?
Aye.
Committee Member Goldman? Can you say it verbally?
Yes.
Committee Member Sala?
Aye.
Committee Member Tiedemann?
Aye.
Chair Montag?
Yes. Thank you. So item number 3 is public comments. So public comments for any comments on that are not items on tonight's agenda. And so we'll open it up for public comment. Do we have any?
those of you who would like to speak during public comment, please click the raise your hand button, or if you are participating by telephone, press *9.
I don't see any hands.
Okay. So we'll give it 3 more seconds. Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll close item 3, public comment, move on to presentations, 4-1 business survey results.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff Bond. I'm going to take a shot at giving you a presentation on this. I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you. So at your meeting last month, Claire gave you a very detailed presentation about the interim results of our business survey, and as it turns out, we only got 1 or 2 more responses. So this is a kind of a summary and to give you an overview as we conclude the analysis of it. And we're looking for your reaction to some of these things as well, and we're hoping that this serves as one of several foundations for thinking about what we start to do in the longer run as we hopefully move towards a recovery very soon. So first of all, to keep in mind that this was a snapshot in time. And we ended up getting 42 responses. They don't represent, as you can see in this slide, they don't necessarily represent all of the all the locations in Albany and all the types of businesses in Albany. So I think it should be, while it's good, useful information from those who did participate. We're grateful for that. It's not the complete picture. And also, as we go through this, to recognize that there are some things that may not have been prioritized by businesses. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not important to the community. It's just not something that came in the responses that we received. First, this is a slide that shows the results of a question about how businesses were currently operating in Albany. And this survey was done, incidentally, I guess it was in April and May. Almost all of it, well, essentially 90% of the businesses were impacted to some degree or not. As you can see on the slide, 15% were just not able to operate. Over 40% were operating remotely or online. And then another 30% have significantly modified their operations in order to be able to stay in business during this period of time. It's affecting everybody, and that's not a surprise to anybody, but it's good to see it documented in the survey results. There was a kind of a 2-part question that we asked, and I broke the responses into 2 different slides. And to summarize, we asked what modifications to their business operations have been implemented and what are planned to be implemented. And as you can see here, a lot of people have figured out online operations. The city is among those organizations that have had to learn how to do that. And I won't read all of these, but the big modification that people are making are online operations. And then, obviously all these other things are important and hopefully helping them. Unfortunately, there's at least 40% of the businesses that responded have had to reduce the number of employees or number of employee hours. So that gets really to the heart of the economic situation that we're facing. This is the second part of the response, which is what are they planning to do for those businesses that are not able to operate or operating under restrictions. And I think it's important for us to see here in the city, at least, that 30% of the businesses are going to be looking to modify their floor plans, and that's something that we can help them with and prepare for. And obviously everybody, the highest response was to regulate the number of customers that they have on site, and again, regulating or reducing the number of employees, which gets to, again, the long-term economic implications of our situation. And again, here's the number of businesses in this question we asked specifically about employees, and over 50% of employees have reduced, employers have reduced the number of employees or the employee hours. We don't know if all these employees affected were Albany residents, probably not, but if they're Albany residents and working in similar businesses in other cities, it kind of gives us a good indication of the stress that our community could be under these days. And then this is a complicated slide, and I want to take a couple minutes to go through it because it was, I think, in some ways the most important question, which is what would be important to people for these businesses for the city to consider doing. And we can't just, obviously, we can't do all these. We ourselves don't know what exactly our fiscal situation here is in city government, and we're not going to know that for a couple more months at least. So this isn't a promise that we're going to do all these, but it is an interesting, some interesting feedback from businesses that we want to begin to think about acting on. And the way this is sorted on the left side of the screen are the responses that were either somewhat important, that's or somewhat useful, that's the blue bar, or very useful. And so what I did in sorting all of these is basically add up the somewhat useful or very useful, and the highest number of responses are on the left side of the screen, and then they decrease across to the right-hand side of the screen. Again, I want to acknowledge that there are things that are important that the businesses who responded didn't necessarily see as important for their situation. And the one that I know people are probably going to worry about is improving bicycle facilities. Well, we're not going to ignore bicycle facilities, but just in the context of this survey and thinking about what we need to do for the local economy, there probably are some other things that businesses would prefer us to work on. Again, I won't try to read every one of these, but I'll just hit on some of the top ones here. People are looking for help, and I should also add that it pops up. Some of these questions kind of overlap, and so one of the things that businesses have asked for is help on understanding and managing public health guidance. So that's the highest response, and that's something that we've been trying to do, but we will continue to make an effort to do that. We've talked about doing a webinar with some of the folks who are attending the meeting today. So we'd like to talk more about that later on. Figuring out a way to help with business marketing, supporting our business organizations that are doing a tremendous amount right now and have a really important role to play. There's, in terms of again, this is the help with protection regulations, again, is related to the health and safety regulations that are coming out of the county and the state, I think. Some educational workshops, and just to kind of summarize the last couple of here, the help with government programs and help with some of all these regulations. We understand that this is not a time that people have a lot of patience for red tape or high fees, and we're continuing to try to be super responsive. While we may not be able to pick up the phone on the first ring, we are trying to listen to messages on a continuous basis and trying to respond to emails on a regular basis. So if people need some help, they just need to be told to reach out to us, and we'll be there for them and try to figure out a way to get there. I won't go through the rest of these, but I did want to kind of put a summary slide together here to use as a point of departure for things that we're going to start thinking about, and your feedback on these would be really helpful. One of them is to make sure that we have an environment where businesses can be successful in this time of stress, and looking at our fees and our regulations, and also passing regulations that protect businesses from evictions. We're planning to, we have that on the books now. We need to update it and keep it extended to at least a few more months and maybe longer. We'll see about that. The second bullet point is providing technical assistance and on a whole wide range of issues. And like I mentioned, webinars or updating our web pages and so forth. You'll be hearing a little bit more about that again with later on in the agenda for some of the things that we've done in terms of providing help with businesses who are reopening. I don't want, as we talk about economic development, I don't want to lose track of kind of the human aspects of this, is that a lot of people who work in Albany are really dramatically affected by this. And we need to stay cognizant of that and provide them support as much as we can. And then finally, the supporting the business associations and the work that they can do for us that the city government may not just be very well positioned to do, but in partnership, we can get a lot done. So I'm going to pause there, and we welcome any discussion or questions that you might have. And I will stop my screen share so that everybody can see each other. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Jeff. Let's open it up, and I see a hand from Member Sala.
I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the out-of-the-box thinking that the city did with opening up the tennis courts for our fitness studios to schedule time for their classes. I think for all of us to get through this, to the other side, we all have to think really creatively, and I'd like to applaud you guys for making that happen.
Thank you.
Okay, any other hands in the air? Questions, comments? I had a quick comment or question on that chart that you were showing. It had two colors. Can you remind me what the differential was, the blue and the yellow?
The one was somewhat useful to businesses. I think we had a scale of not useful, somewhat useful, very useful, and then don't know. And so I kind of combined the somewhat useful and the useful, and I believe the blue, I'd have to go back and share my screen again, but I believe the blue was somewhat useful, and the yellow or gold was very useful.
And I'll follow up with another question. I've been hearing that the CARES, I think through the state, is potentially providing some funding at a city level. Have you heard of that? Have you guys been tracking that at all? Commissioner Tiedemann probably knows a lot more about this than I do. There is some money that's coming into the county and then being distributed by the county into various cities. And I think the programs are primarily focused, and I hope Aaron will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think right now the focus is on providing rental assistance to households that are under stress. At least those are the programs we've heard the most about so far. I haven't heard anything about an economic development side of that, but maybe I've just missed that.
I have also been more focused on the housing element of that, which is where the bulk of those funds are being spent. However, it's always possible that there's some economic development parts of it that I may have missed. Yeah,
I've been hearing there is. But yes, Member Sala.
I don't know if there's funding available, but the city of Burlingame is doing grants to businesses to help them pay for their PPP equipment and their, redoing their floor plans to allow for social distancing and things like that. So paying for hand sanitizer, the masks for staff, the Lysol wipes, the sneeze guards, that kind of thing. Businesses are able to get, well, it's still in the planning stages, but they're able to get a grant to help pay for those things. If there's funding available, that might be something that the city of Albany could consider doing to help businesses.
And that might be a comment for another agenda item, but I just was curious if there was. It's just something to think about, and we can talk about it, I think, in the next item. So thank you. Any other comments on the survey?
Just to remind you that you may want to take public comment if
Yep.
there's people interested in that.
Okay, thank you. So seeing none, is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any hands raised. Oh, I do.
Sure.
Amy Smollins, you're up.
There you go. Now I'm on mute.
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, Jeff, thanks for that presentation. That was really informative. And I did notice that 28% of your respondents said it will be very useful to use sidewalk and parking spaces. So that's certainly been borne out by the reality of the businesses, specifically the restaurants using the outdoor spaces, and they're very, very happy with it. They're super pleased with the way it's going. It's obviously hard, and there's been adjustments that everyone's been making, but they're extremely pleased with their ability to stay in business and bring some people back to work, employees, their staff. So that also speaks to the human element that you mentioned. We know all the business owners. They live around here. So Vani and I really appreciated the work that you've done working with us and the businesses to get this going. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any other hands raised?
Yeah, we
I
have.
think there's a second one.
Yeah, we have Francesco Papalia.
Hi, thank you. One thing that I noted there was that there seems to be a vast majority of the people, I mean 80, 90% of the people want more information about the health issues. And in the discussions that I've seen in my own office, with my own business as a realtor, amongst other realtors, and online with on the various websites and Facebook pages and Nextdoor, is that there is a variety of confusion and misinformation about how to safely act, which areas are better to operate in and why. And I would think that that should be a primary action item where the city comes up and has like the city health, somehow have the health department say, here's the best way to do this. For instance, and I'll bring specifically to a dialogue that was going on, I think on Nextdoor, that people were talking about how much safer, some people were concerned about social distancing in the out of doors. And some people were saying that it's the indoors where the social distancing is more important because the air is contained, and that when you're outside, it's dispersed, the droplets are dispersed so quickly that's it's a different way of doing things, that you can be outside. So I'm still learning, and I'm finding, and so how can I need to know so that
Sorry,
then I discuss it.
Sorry, Francesco, you have one more minute.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have another minute or
1 minute?
Okay. So I would like to be able to have the city have a reference place, like here's how we best feel it's operate in interacting on the sidewalks, in the parks, in businesses, and to have a way that we can all reference it. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Great. Thank you. I don't see any other public comment, so I'll close public comment and I'll bring it back. I'll just say it seems like staff's done a yeoman's job in outlining what the kind of state level and also kind of helpful hints on the website, at least from what I've read. So I think the information is there, just needs to be accessed. But with that, I think we are good with this item, and we'll move forward to item number 5, which is a discussion of possible action on matters related to encroachment permits for outdoor seating and an update.
Yes, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and give you a presentation as an update from the last meeting. Okay, so at your last meeting on June 4th, there was extensive discussion on encroachment permits for outdoor seating. And at that time, the committee gave feedback and recommendations for council consideration. And we wanted to bring you just a status report back for this evening and let you know where we are in that process. So for your review tonight, we're simply just giving you an update and explaining a little bit more about the process and what has happened in the time since your last meeting. So just to give you the full background, on June 1st, the council gave direction to staff to work with this advisory body and the Transportation Commission to come up with prototypes for street treatments and other discussion points that we brought back to City Council for further review. So on June 4th, after your extensive discussion, you endorsed a recommendation to proceed with encroachment permits and then also recommend that the council consider fee waivers for these temporary installations for in-street restaurant seating. This topic went to the Transportation Commission last Thursday. Overall, they supported the Economic Development Committee's recommendation. They supported approving permits for the duration of the county health order, as well as giving staff flexibility on parking space allocation for business, requirements for removal when not in use, as well as posting advisory signs and monitoring vehicle speeds on the corridor. So we're back to you this evening with the status update, and all of this information will go back to the City Council. So the information from the Transportation Commission as well as this advisory body will go to them on Monday evening, July 6th. And so just to give you an overview of encroachment permits, they are effectively an agreement between the city and a private party for use of city-owned property for a particular activity or event. In this case, we talked specifically about outdoor seating. This, of course, also extends to other work that may occur, utility work, that sort of thing. Typically, when we issue the permit, we're effectively granting authorization to allow that activity within the city's right-of-way. The permit is unique to the request, and it provides the terms and conditions for specific site activity. One thing I wanted to clarify is that this is ministerial review, which means it's done at a staff level, checked for basic compliance, and then issued to the applicant. So it is not a process that is subject to extensive public review or mailed notices. It's a much faster review process. And so generally speaking, the encroachment permit review process takes 3 to 5 days for review processing and issuance. They are submitted to the Community Development Department. We then coordinate with the Public Works Department to better understand issues that may be affected. So, for example, as I mentioned, utility work, there's issues of street sweeping, and more topically, there is some sidewalk shaving. You may have seen those folks out this week doing some sidewalk work on San Pablo and Solano. So these are the types of things that we have to look at with the public works staff to make sure that if there's conflict, it can be mitigated and that those business owners are aware of what may happen. Also, as part of this process, we want to have direct coordination with the business and also better understand the field conditions. So we've done that with a number of the permits that have been issued. As I'm sure this group is aware, each business has different needs based on their staffing capacity, the capacity of their respective kitchens. So none of the requests that we receive, no two are alike, because they are all really unique to the individual businesses that have applied. Though we didn't have formal authorization, as part of our processing, we did not charge fees as part of the recent review. And this is part of one of your attachments to the staff report. It's attachment 2. This is the cover sheet. So this is a sample of the conditions of approval. This is actually one of 3 pages, but this just gives an outline of the site-specific citation, as well as the conditions of approval that business is required to comply with for use of the street. And because this situation is especially unique with in-street seating, we worked with our transportation planner to come up with kind of a crude drawing, if you will, but it's something that was intended to communicate basic safety requirements. So still maintaining path of travel, maintaining ADA compliance, having adequate setbacks from the travel lane so that there wouldn't be any vehicle conflict. And then also, you can see here a note on having cones spaced a certain distance apart for greater visibility. And so this was also part of the conditions of approval. This is attachment 3 to your staff report, and this is the screenshot of the permits that were issued as of last Friday when your packet was released. So there were 13 in total, and we received an additional permit application submittal this week. One thing to note, just as general correspondence, we did receive a message today from the Alameda County Environmental Health Department that they are going to be going out starting next week and conducting their own enforcement with the individual restaurants. And this is specifically to demonstrate compliance with the county health order as it relates to outdoor seating. And one of the previous speakers in your public speakers in your item mentioned social distancing and some concerns that were out there in the community. And this action on behalf of the health department is in direct response to calls that they received as it relates to compliance with the order. We did receive 3 emails in response to this topic. All of that was sent to the committee and has also been published on the Economic Development Committee agenda website. And with that, we continue to monitor the utilization of the installations, as well as the street parking occupancy, safety issues, and general compliance with the conditions of approval. So it continues to be an ongoing area of monitoring for city staff. And with that, that concludes my presentation. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. So at this point, we'll bring it to the committee for questions of staff. Then we'll open it up for public comment and bring it back for comments for staff. So any questions from the committee? Yes, Member Tiedemann, followed by Member Kane.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that presentation. It was a good summary. I am curious, I heard from some business owners that there was a slight snafu or miscommunication from the city manager's office about whether they could have, their encroachment or have their presence on streets. And I was hoping staff could provide a little bit more detail about what happened there, what went wrong, and how we can avoid that sort of miscommunication.
I could take the first shot at that. I don't think there was ever any communication between the city manager's office and any of the businesses. What we did when we issued permits is we also reminded businesses that they were those that had already opened the installations, that they were technically in violation of city requirements. And so we did issue them a notice of violation. There's no fine. It wasn't meant to be a real heavy-handed thing, but we also want to make sure that people understand they do need to come to us. We do have a responsibility for safety considerations. But the city manager, I think what happened is that I conveyed to a member of the public the direction I personally received from the city manager, and I think that's gotten blown a little bit out of proportion. To my knowledge, the city manager has not talked to any of the businesses that have been affected by this.
Thank you. Member Kane?
So there are several locations that have business addresses in Berkeley, but whose street is actually managed, parking enforced, the whole 9 yards by Albany. Of those 22 businesses, 4 of them are restaurants. Has Albany been contacted by Rivoli or any of the Berkeley restaurants whose street is in Albany, and what is the protocol? Thank you.
No, we haven't been contacted by any of those businesses on kind of the more eastern portion of Solano that's located in Berkeley.
I had a second question, actually, if I could. The encroachment permit asks for insurance, an insurance certificate, which would generally mean that the business is insured and that the city is getting a certificate showing that they're insured. Does the business actually have to extend their insurance to cover the patrons out on city property?
They should be. We haven't actually, at this point, enforced any of these conditions of approval, if you notice, actually. Following city council action next week, we'll then begin the process of what we intend to have is a very friendly, collaborative, problem-solving approach to, hey, let's address some of these issues. And I think that needs to be part of the conversation is, hey, business owner, have you talked to your insurance agent about this? Because it is our expectation that if something were to happen and there needed to be an insurance claim, that their insurance policy would be part of the solution.
So you mentioned that there were some businesses that were operating out of compliance. I'm sorry, Chair, this will be my last question. About how many businesses were up and about how many of those businesses were permitted or were compliant?
Of the initial submittal, I believe there were 2 that did not, they waited to obtain the permits before proceeding, and there were 8 that proceeded in advance of permit issuance.
So in other words, 80% of the people were operating out of compliance.
That's correct.
Okay.
And actually, I just want to add one point to your previous question related to liability, and that is when the business owner signs the encroachment permit application, they basically indemnify the city. So that serves as another provision that basically does not hold the city liable in the event that something happens. By them signing that form, they waive that right.
I would hope that they would also have insurance to cover if something happened, beyond just covering the city.
So, yeah, and I'll just add that that's not a unique requirement that the city of Albany is doing, and that's all cities would require similar type of indemnification. Any other questions by the committee before we open up public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I don't see any hands raised. Oh, now I do. Amy Smollins.
And we'll just remind for public comment, you have 3 minutes.
Yep, I see the clock. Thanks. Just wanted to clarify one thing. The businesses last Tuesday did receive an email from city staff saying that they'd have to pull the setups by 5 o'clock. So that really put a scare into them. Bonnie and I were contacted by various businesses who were nervous and saying, what's going on? We have to pull the stuff by 5 o'clock. So even if the letter didn't come directly from the city manager, they were, they didn't want, that was something that made them nervous from city staff when they had been operating and had applied for the permit. So that's just one clarification. So that's, I guess, what Aaron was alluding to. So just in general, as part of Albany Inside Out, Bonnie and I have been in contact with more than 50 business owners and managers, and we've sourced and built with other volunteers barriers. We're putting into effect safety measures and continuing to work with them to enact what the city needs to be done for everything to be safe for the businesses and their staff and the customers and all that. So let us know if there's anything else you need from us, because obviously the businesses are in close touch with us. So it's working well. I know a couple more businesses have applied, like Fonda and Hal's. So, it's getting to be the thing. And now that people are walking along Solano and seeing that restaurants are open, they're getting busier. They didn't know at first that they were even open. Now they know that. Plus, people are feeling a little safer. So it's the success is growing. So thanks for that, Jeff and Ann. That's it.
Thank you. Next, do we have a second? Or
Yeah, we have
just-
Francesco Papalia.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay.
I think we lost.
Oh, we lost you.
You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm hands-free. I'm not, I did unmute. I would, regarding this issue of the restart, what I find most compelling need for the governments and the staff and the people and the neighbors and the businesses is how we can figure out we can't do this because insurance, distancing isn't being followed properly. And instead of saying we can't do something because of something, that the modus operandi should be, we need to get this done. We can do it, and we'll find a way that works, that addresses all the health and safety needs, and we'll do it as expediently as possible. And I say this because I have had worked at a business on Solano Avenue for almost 30 years now, from the top of the Solano Avenue down to the bottom. I have worked here, and I've lived within a block of Solano Avenue. And I want to tell you that I have, during the last 3 months, I would go shopping and traveling on Solano Avenue by foot, by car, by bicycle. And there wasn't a single trip that I made that I did not see the empty parking spaces, the empty places, the shuttered buildings, which one's going to go out of business next, that I did not feel an overwhelming fear that these people were going to lose their businesses. And I mean this every trip, because I'm a visual person on Solano Avenue. I'm always checking things out. And if you have ever hear me talk or speak about this issue now or in the future, it's because I understand the plight of the entrepreneur who puts all of their hopes and dollars to make their business happen. And they were caught by an emergency, and we need to help them expediently with a can-do effort. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that may do it for public comment. Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, with that, then we'll close public comment, bring it back to the committee. And I believe what the item on this one is for any kind of input staff's looking for from the committee to assist with the physical distancing requirements through the public right-of-way. There's not necessarily an action item, but any other comments or input? I don't see any. Oh, we have a hand up for Member Tiedemann.
Just to say that I very much appreciate staff's willingness to work with businesses and work to make things easy and waive things before receiving explicit direction to do so from the City Council.
Thank you. And I have a question, or just more curiosity. The wine barrels, who's supplying those, and how does that, where is that coming from? Or how's that coordinated, if at all?
I'll take the first shot at it. And I do want to just circle back on one thing. I think I misspoke a little bit with my earlier response to Commissioner Tiedemann, Committee Member Tiedemann, about the communications. There was a little bit of some confusion on one particular day, and I just want to acknowledge I forgot about one email that went out to a few of the businesses. But with respect to the wine barrels, that's I believe that is that's nothing the city has had anything to do with, and I think that's part of Amy and Bonnie's efforts. Maybe wrong about that, but I believe they're help individual businesses bring those in.
All right, thank you. Okay, staff, does that give you what you needed on this item? All right, then we'll close this item and we'll move on to item 5-2, which is discussion of short-term business recovery strategies. And what we're going to do is receive staff presentation and then discuss potential city actions.
Yes. So sorry, sharing my screen here. I just have a brief presentation on what we've been doing so far in terms of business recovery strategies beyond what Ann and Jeff have already discussed tonight. So this is basically from what we've learned from the survey results and also what we heard last month from you in terms of how we prioritize potential projects related to economic recovery. It seems like we should it sounded like we should prioritize providing valuable information to the business community and connect businesses with opportunities for financial support. And so with that information, we've been continuing efforts to support the business community in a variety of ways. That includes our weekly calls with members of the Albany Chamber of Commerce and Solano Avenue Association to share resources and coordinate efforts to provide support to the business community. We also continue to update our comprehensive webpage with resources available for businesses and employees challenged by COVID-19 as new information becomes available. This includes a new webpage for resources for reopening, which I'll share in a moment, and we'll continue to promote relevant resources through our outreach channels, social media, e-newsletter, etc. We plan to partner with the Chamber of Commerce on another webinar to share with businesses how the city is able to support them and also answer any questions they have of us directly. Hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll be posting that webinar and sharing that information widely with businesses. Our ordinance to protect commercial and residential tenants from rent increases or evictions for non-payment is still in effect. And in response to the allowance of outdoor fitness classes, the Chamber of Commerce worked with the city's Recreation and Community Services Department, which quickly created an option for local gyms to rent the tennis courts at Ocean View Park for outdoor fitness classes. And the Chamber of Commerce and Solano Avenue Association have done a great job of promoting that. But if you have any contacts with local businesses or local gyms, please share with them. That is a resource for outdoor fitness classes in Albany. And then we posted resources for reopening on our website in anticipation of particularly of this change where many businesses can start operating. I think that went into effect on June 19th, and our reopening guide came out a couple days before that. The web page focuses on county regulations, really focus on information on what businesses can reopen and when, and any industry-specific regulations from the county, including they have specific guidelines for certain types of businesses in reopening. Also, there's a lot of advice and resources on how to reopen, such as how to keep staff and customers safe, such as information about PPE, signage, how to rearrange your space, information on if you'd like to move outside, information on encroachment permits, also outdoor waste bins and requirements for collecting waste if you have moved your business outside, and information on eviction protection. And then there's some industry-specific information, such as the space for outdoor fitness classes and restaurant-specific advice about any kind of shared products like menus, foodware, how to reduce food waste, and outdoor alcohol licenses. But I'm sure that there's more information that we could be providing to businesses. We have promoted this through the Solano Avenue Association and Chamber of Commerce newsletters, as well as our own. But if you have feedback on the page, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it previously, but if you didn't, you're also welcome to share. You're welcome to share feedback now, or take a look at it at any time. And if you email me, it's the kind of thing that we see as a working document that we'll be updating over time to help provide resources to businesses as they reopen. So please share anything you think is relevant. And that concludes my presentation. So happy to take questions or feedback.
Great, thank you for the presentation. So again, this is the time where the committee can ask questions, and then we'll open up public comment and then bring it back for comments. So any questions from the committee? Don't see any. I'll just restate that I think a resource to look into, and it may be for certain size cities, but the CARES program will be available for some sort of economic development funds, just to take a look at that opportunity, maybe through your channels. And that could be used for a variety of items to support the business efforts. Okay, one last go. Any questions from the committee before we open it up? Yes, Member Charles.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's going to be, I know we're backpedaling in some instances with opening, but as we go into the next phases, with the city, it's going to be important that we're all in line, with the city ordinances and everything. So again, as we go to the next phase, 80% of our businesses are out of compliance.
Any other questions at this point? Okay, we're gonna take public comment, and we'll open up public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, I see Todd Abbott.
Again, you have 3 minutes to make your comments.
All right, hi. I really just wanted to recognize city staff. I know you guys have been juggling a lot of balls, and I think you've really come through on this, and I very much appreciate the effort you put into it. And I know it's been challenging. I know that some of the decisions you've had to make are unpopular, and I really appreciate that, and just want to acknowledge that. That's all I really had to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. So we'll then close public comment on this item, bring it back to the committee, and I don't believe there's per se an action item, but just wanted to get any of the feedback from the committee on this item. So again, staff has what they need. Seems like it. Okay. Then we'll close this item and we'll move on to item 6.1 or 6. Yeah, new business. 6.1, reorganization of chair and vice chair for the committee. So this is the time where we're going to reorganize, and we'll have a new chair, a new vice chair for the committee. And the way we're going to handle this, we'll take nominations, and the nominations doesn't need to be second for the chair, and then we'll do the vice chair afterwards. Once we have the list of potential chair nominees, we'll take it in order, of nominations. And obviously, if someone's being nominated, we want that person to be willing and able to do it. So with that, I believe we will move on to saying, do we have any nominations for chair of the committee? Yes, Member Sala.
I would like to nominate Sean Charles to be our next chair.
Great, thank you, Member Sala. Member Charles, are you open and willing to be the chair?
Yes.
Okay. So we have one nomination. Is there any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none. Excuse me, staff, do I need to take public comment before we do that? Or do we just go ahead and do it? I forget.
Jeff, do you know?
I think I would err on the side of taking public comment. I'm not sure exactly what Robert's Rules of Order says about that, but
okay.
Couldn't hurt.
So I'll open it up for public comment.
I don't see any hands.
Okay, so we'll close public comment on the nomination. So we should take roll on the nomination of Member Charles to be the chair of the committee.
Committee Member Kane?
Yes.
Committee Member Charles?
Abstain.
Committee Member Goldman? Sorry, can you respond verbally? Okay, we can't hear you, but she said yes. Vice Chair Sala?
Yes.
Committee Member Tiedemann?
Yes.
And Chair Montag?
Yes. Great. Congratulations. I think I still have the duty and honor to ask for vice chair nominations. Do we have anyone who would like to be nominated or would like to nominate someone for vice chair? Yes, Member Sala.
I'd like to nominate Aaron Tiedemann for vice chair of our committee.
Member Tiedemann, you've been nominated. How do you feel about that?
Thank you, Stephanie. I would be happy to serve as vice chair.
Great. Do we have any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, seeing none, let's take roll for vice chair nomination of Member Tiedemann.
Committee Member Kane? Said yes. Committee Member Charles?
Yes.
Committee Member Goldman? Vice Chair Sala?
Yes.
Committee Member Tiedemann?
Yes.
Chair Montag?
Yes. I forgot to
That was a yes for me, by the way.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I think I will now turn this meeting over to Chair Charles. Or do I finish it off? I forget. I'll finish it off. Item 7, announcements. Any business updates?
I'd like to start with a quick update on what's going on with COVID in Alameda County, and I'm going to show you a couple of images. This first slide is the number of hospitalizations in Alameda County. This is updated at least once a day by Alameda County Public Health Department. And I apologize, this is their image. The graphs are a little hard to read, but basically this left-hand, the axis on the left-hand side of the page is the number of hospital beds occupied by people who are COVID positive. This dates back to late March. And you can see it was pretty steady for a while. I think your last meeting was around here. But what's of great concern is in the last 10 days or so, a pretty significant and steady climb up, and we're now at 116 people are hospitalized in Alameda County, which is record high. This lower graph are the number of patients in an ICU, which has fortunately stayed relatively steady. But nonetheless, this is still the real deal. It's a serious public health problem in Alameda County and many other places as well, of course. But when we participate in the now 3 days a week conference calls with Alameda County Public Health, the public health officer often refers to the hospitalization rates as one of the indicators of concern, and particularly, right now our hospitals have plenty of capacity. They could handle, I think, another couple hundred people pretty easily, but it does seem to indicate the severity, the trends in the severity of the outbreak. The second thing I wanted to share is this again is a graphic from Alameda County Public Health, and it shows the stages of the reopening plan, as they call it. And we're right now in this, the last yellow bullet point, which was we entered on June 19th. That's when outdoor dining, among other things, was allowed to occur. When this was first, this kind of sequence of events was first announced earlier in June, the County Public Health Department talked about moving from one step to the next in a time frame of every 2 to 4 weeks. And now more recently, they're talking about doing it more slowly in a time frame of 4 to 6 weeks. And I know Committee Member Sala has a question about whether or not there is any anticipation of going backwards on this reopening plan. That question has been addressed to both the previous public health officer who left earlier this week to become the epidemiologist for the state of California and our new current public health officer. And they both had the same answer, which was, no, what other counties are doing is they're really coming back to where we've been in Alameda County. Alameda County has been going a little bit slower, and they, at this point, don't see the evidence for the need to go backwards, but they are concerned and they are definitely planning to move more slowly going forwards. So that's both, I guess, good news and bad news, but that's the status of things. We'll continue to monitor these calls on 3 days a week, and if and when information comes out of it that we think is pertinent to our business community and the committee, we'll let you know. And all this is public, and like this graphic and much of their information is public information on their webpage. They've got a really good dashboard, and I'd really encourage people who have questions to go there because they really are the subject matter experts. We're not health professionals here. We can't pretend to know what they know about the situation that we're in. So do try to take advantage of their webpage. It's pretty good. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee on the report? Yes, Member Kane, followed by Member Goldman.
Were there any effects from the civil demonstrations?
Yeah, the question was asked maybe a week ago. I can't remember exactly which conference call it was, and they don't think so, but I've seen there's some speculation in the media about that. It seems to be affecting a greater proportion of younger people more recently. And I don't know if that's because the long-term care facilities are getting better at managing it or what. But they're not aware of any sort of scientific evidence that it was the demonstrations that are causing the current peak.
Great, thank you. Member Goldman?
Can you hear me? Okay. What about any information about city by city, or is it more, is it worse in South County versus North County? I found that information to find. on the, I'm missing it on their website.
So yeah, there is some information, and I think I can actually share my screen to show you where to find that. Let's see here. And I'm glad you asked, because so this is the first page of their dashboard. There's a lot of different stuff going on here because Berkeley has their own health department. They have their own public health officer, but their information is they're sharing this dashboard. There's lots of different breakdowns by age and ethnicity and so forth. And here on the side is a breakdown by city. So you can see in Albany, we have 15 cases. This is total, cumulative since the beginning of this. 15 residents who are or have been COVID positive. And it's a little bit of a concern. This has increased from 10 to 15 in the last 10 days or so. So I'm not exactly sure how that compares to the rate of increase in other cities, but for 2 months or more, we were at less than 10, and they didn't report the details. If you had less than 10 in a particular city, they just said less than 10. They didn't tell us exactly how many. But now that we're above 10, we're getting the daily updates, and this has increased. I think it increased by 2 people today, or over 2 days or something. So. And it also shows, there's on this page, you can see the rate per 100,000 population. So other cities have a much more serious, we're at 76 people per 100,000. We got 100,000. Hayward is 657 people with COVID positive per 100,000. So 10 times the rate that we're seeing it here. Newark, Oakland. So the concentration, and actually if you go to their next page, they have kind of a little heat map here that will come up in a second. I hope.
By zip code, yeah.
Yeah. That you can navigate around. The darker the color, the more serious it is. So you can see East Oakland is in pretty bad shape. This is Hayward and San Leandro. And then out in East County, it's a little darker color than what we have in the northern part of Alameda County. And the best off seems to be the Berkeley Hills. And yeah, you can click into all these. You can click by area code, and then there's some more statistics, and you can really dive deep if you want to get super wonky about the information. And if you're super interested, just send me an email, because I have other things I look at as well, if you really want to see some of the other resources that we're finding pretty useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, okay. Then let's open up for public comment. Any? I don't see any. Do you see any?
I don't see any hands raised.
Bring it back to the committee. Thank you for those updates. And so we'll move on to item 8, future agenda items, committee member
John,
announcement.
yeah.
Yes.
I believe you skipped 6.2, subcommittee reorganization.
Ooh, thank you. Apologize. We will have to go backwards to item 6-2, subcommittee reorganization. And Claire, do I defer to you to help kind of navigate that? Because I don't have committees up top at this point, or do we want to hold it for next meeting?
Up to you. You had a variety of committees. We don't really recommend standing committees. They need to be, subcommittees need to be ad hoc subcommittees to work on a specific topic. Standing subcommittees do end up needing to be noticed for Brown Act rules. So it's always good to revisit your subcommittees, especially at a time when perhaps the subcommittees that you were on previously this year may not be relevant anymore. So I remember there was a farmers market subcommittee, there was a marketing subcommittee, and there was an arts subcommittee. I think you had officially disbanded the subcommittee on the business improvement district at your meeting in early 2020. So this is an opportunity to talk about whether those subcommittees are still relevant, if there are new subcommittees you want to pursue, but also there's no obligation that you have any subcommittees at all. So it's up to you how you want to use your time as volunteers to support the efforts.
So I'll just start off, and I'm open to the committee for their comment, but it seems like it would be prudent potentially just disband what we have, and then as items come up, for example, if there wants to be kind of a COVID committee that could be the most pressing item subcommittee to work on. That'd be the only thing I would think of as compelling at this point. But I'll just throw that out to the committee for comment and open up further suggestions. Anyone?
I'll throw my hat in the ring. So the Solano Avenue Association and Albany Chamber of Commerce continue to be highly concerned about the vacancies on the street. Our boards, aside from meeting with the city, the Chamber and Solano Avenue Association having the weekly calls with the city, the Chamber and Association leadership also meets on Tuesday evenings running scenarios about vacancies and various other things. And in terms of vacancies, it looks like one of the directions they're kind of pushing me into is, quote, becoming an expert on vacancies. That could also include me going to real estate school and getting a real estate license to do commercial real estate, understanding the various perspectives involved in a real estate transaction in a commercial district and that kind of thing. So it would be nice if we had a vacancy subcommittee. I'm disappointed in the fact that we're not meeting till September, and these times, a lot can happen in the next 60 days. So it would be nice if we could meet between now and September and talk about vacancies and techniques that other cities are using to deal with them.
Thank you. So we have an idea to have a vacancy committee or probably business attraction type of committee. Yes, Member Golden, did you have a?
Yeah, I wanted to add that I'm still interested in being on the arts subcommittee. I feel like there were a lot, when they came to our meeting a few months ago, a lot of good suggestions, and I don't want this all to sort of fall by the wayside. And interestingly, Oakland's doing a lot right now because of the Black Lives Matter and their murals. I mean, the art in Oakland has just exploded. It's amazing. So I would like to continue that subcommittee to the extent that it's possible. In this.
I think what I'm hearing, it can't be like, it has some sort of unique action or unique goal that you're trying to achieve, because it can't be a standing committee. So I'm in favor of it, but I think just kind of the mindset that I'm hearing from staff that it should just have a specific goal, a short-term goal, so to speak.
I think when subcommittees are meeting in non-public meetings, that's the recommendation. For the arts subcommittee, more recently, Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, you've sort of been more of a liaison than a subcommittee where you're going to arts committee meetings and reporting back. And that seems like something that's appropriate to continue.
Does that sound okay? Okay. Yes, Chair Charles.
Yeah, so I was just basically going to second what Alan said regarding the vacancies. Vacancies are already an issue on Solano and San Pablo Avenue. And unfortunately, it's probably going to get worse before it gets any better. So we need to figure out how we're going to address those. I would also suggest maybe putting a committee together that addresses maybe the next phases or reopening. An organized committee that can give organized directions and make organized recommendations to City Council, and hopefully get those things out to the public, get accurate information out to the public so they can react accordingly.
Okay. We have few now to consider. Any others? All right, so let's take the first one, which was suggested, I think, the vacancy committee. Do we have any interest for members to participate in that one? Anyone? Yes, member Chair Charles and member Sala. Or do you have a question, Sala?
Well, I want to say I'm interested in this, but I also have been greatly affected by the pandemic in my own business. And so I am, I hesitate to volunteer to give my time because I really need to focus on my business right now and getting through this tough time. At the same time, it's something that is near and dear to my heart and is something that I've always been interested in our business district. So
thank you.
And you can have up to 3 members on a subcommittee since you have 7 members on your committee. So if there's another member.
I believe Robert Chasey's expressed an interest in this. I don't want to obligate him in any way, shape, or form. He is a property owner, residential and commercial in town. I think his input would be valuable, or even actually Chair Montage, but I know that you're trying to retire, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would be interested in sitting on that if that's an opening. So 3 would be good enough, and 2.5, and member Sala can join as she'd like.
Well, I will say Stephanie, in the 10 years I've been doing this, has been great in terms of business recruiting, sending the association suggestions, businesses that you run into, which is something anybody can do if you find a good fit. I know that smaller restaurants in Japan are combining forces into larger locations, which I have fantasies about Valparaiso becoming 2 separate restaurants within that one building. So there's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure with your experience with the city of Concord, you've done a lot of recruiting. So
yeah, for sure. So does that work then? So Chair Charles, former Chair Montag, and then member Sala as needed. Does that work?
Actually just trying to point to Alan. So.
I apologize. Okay.
Yeah. So I think Alan, I would love to give up my spot, and so I can work on some other things if you're willing to work.
Okay. So, member Kane, do you want to, or do you want to see if Robert wants to?
I could go either way. I mean, the chamber, again, we're meeting every Tuesday running scenarios, so we're already in the thick of it. It'd be great to have your wisdom and tutelage.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a new committee. Second committee that was discussed is a kind of COVID proactive mining and data sharing to get information processed. It seems like the staff's been on top, but maybe that's different perception. But who would like? Anyway, is there interest in someone wants a couple of the members being on that committee? Member Tiedemann?
Yeah, I'd be happy to be on that. Especially as it seems like we had ideas for something about business reopening as well as COVID, which I feel like can sort of be folded into one committee that's dealing with all the aspects of the crisis.
Okay. Do we have a co-chair for, is that right? Co-member of the subcommittee? Yes, member Chair Charles. Oh, you're in? Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, we have 2. And then we have the liaison for the arts. Did we miss anyone? That's good. And we'll use that for now. Okay. Thank you for item 6.2. Do we have to maybe open up to public comment? I forgot. Anyone? Let's go to public comment. Any public comment on that?
Yeah, it looks like there's a hand up from Francesca Papalier.
Yes. Hi. I would like to suggest that the committee to discussing the vacancies on Solano take it as their primary goal is to figure out ways to prevent new vacancies from businesses going out of business. You don't need a real estate degree to get that, to figure out that. You need to talk to the businesses, anyone and everyone that needs help, and you could prevent. I think that the vacancy committee could do tenfold production by preventing vacancies rather than trying to fill the ones that are already vacant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I don't see any.
Okay, so we'll close this item, bring it back to the committee. Any other comments on this? Great.
I mean, like I said, there are opportunities for businesses to grow into existing businesses on the street, to grow into larger locations. Like any good salesperson, we're going to hit up our existing clients before we look for new ones. So, but thank you for the suggestion, Francesca. Appreciate it.
All right. Any last comment? Good. We'll close item 6.2. Okay, so go back to item 8, which is future agenda items. Committee member announcements, requests for future agenda items. Yes, member Kane, and then member Saul.
I'm very new to all of this governmental committee stuff, and I don't know if I'm coming from a crazy direction here. I know that we are in charge of economic development. Simultaneously, there are people who are sick and dying from this disease, and I'm hoping that at the next meeting we could have a moment of silence for those who are suffering.
Do we need two committee members to approve that for it to be on the agenda, or we can just accept that?
I have no idea.
Well, we have two. Fine. I think that's appropriate. So, all right, member Sala.
I wanted to back up a second and go back to Francesco's point, and I wonder if we should have an additional subcommittee that is focused on business retention. So vacancies would be one committee, and business retention and making sure that the businesses that are here have the best chance at survival would be a second one.
I think unfortunately we closed the item, so I think we can bring it up to the next.
I had my hand
committee.
up, but
I apologize.
Moved on too fast.
I didn't see it. Can we go back or not? I don't think we can.
I mean, I think the two subjects really are commingled. And we have already been, as an association, working behind the scenes with many relationships between salon owners and property owners and restaurant owners and their landlords. There are many people who were scared, who didn't have the communication skills necessary to call and negotiate some sort of resolution in terms of rent reduction, that kind of thing. So we've already been working behind the scenes.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate that. I closed the item, so I don't think we can just continue to talk about it. I think it can be put on to the next item or next agendized for the next committee. And so let's go ahead and put a subcommittee relook on the agenda item to put it back on. Apologize. Okay, so that's a future item. Subcommittees, expanding of the subcommittees. Any other committee or any other agenda items? Make sure I look at it wrong. Okay, I don't see any. So we'll close item 8 and then go to item 9, which is next meeting, September 3rd of 2020 at 5 p.m. And with that, I thank you all and congratulations, member or Chair Charles and Vice Chair Tiedemann. Look forward for you guys in September. With that, we're adjourned.
Sorry again, Jeff Bond and Claire, for my questioning.